in different disciplines as well. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, I'm Joey. I'm working as a modern workspace consultant for a consulting company in the Netherlands. I work mostly with Intune, Microsoft 365, Autopilot, Azure AD, Azure AD Enterprise apps, and all that kind of stuff for quite some years now. So yeah, that's what I do in my daily life.
Okay,
Jonas.
good. And me, okay, yeah. My name is Jonas. One of the administrators on the Discord, doing some fun event like this. We had Somesh reach in a way that he needed to do something like this, and we just went like, okay, this is the first time for us doing an event, so I'm gonna be speaking today. I think I'm gonna be last, if I remember correctly, but I talk a lot about security, identity, primary. Also have a little bit of knowledge about Endpoint Manager. But today is going to be about Azure AD Security. And the next one is going to be Jannik.
All. My name is Shehan Solution Architect, and as all the others mostly, but I also work in a topic where I try to use of analytics and analyze them with this.
Cool.
Up to you.
So it's Somesh.
Yeah. All right. Hi, everyone. This is Somesh, live from Stockholm, Sweden. It's getting dark here now in the evening. And so I'm having 15 years of experience working as a workspace technical architect, working with Intune, passionate about iOS and Android devices, highly active on Jonas Discord community and on LinkedIn. Yeah.
Awesome. And before we get going with Shehan, he's going to be the first one talking. He's going to present his own subject. But for all of those watching, if there is any, it's first time for many. So this is just going to be like a first time experience. And if you want to join in, you can join the Discord in the bottom. Thank you, James. But let's get going. Let's get going with Shehan. And yeah, let's go.
Thanks, Jonas. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to discuss about this in this session. So I'm going to discuss about Intune device enrollment challenges in a hybrid environment. So hi, everyone. As I mentioned earlier, my name is Shehan. I'm connecting from Adelaide, Australia, and I'm working as a consultant in a company called Data3 here in Adelaide, Australia. To start off the discussion, I would like to discuss about why hybrid. A few reasons why I chose the hybrid environment, because many organizations at the moment are still in this phase in the journey of moving from on-premises to cloud. And some of the organizations are in the starting point, and needs to have best of both worlds for the devices. So as I mentioned, so this will be a good starting point to go in the hybrid mode. So the focus of this session is actually I'm going to discuss about why hybrid again very briefly, and some common issues. So these are the challenges which I have seen in the environments mostly. So I want to discuss about those and how to address them, as well as some observations from the field and some troubleshooting help as well, which can help you to troubleshoot your issues in the hybrid environment when enrolling devices into Intune. So as I mentioned, the idea is to have a cloud managed device. So for that, you should have a hybrid AAD join mode device in the first place, because you have a local AD already. And when you have the hybrid AD join mode, the device, you can then go into the Intune enrollment stage. But as you know, there are challenges in both of the stages. So that's those are the things which I'm discussing today. So first of all, yeah, the hybrid AD join state going pending. So this is one of the major blockers in the environments at the moment. So as you can see, if you log into your Entra portal or the Azure AD portal and go to devices and all devices, you will see all sorts of join modes in your Azure AD. So there can be Azure AD join devices and there can be hybrid AD join devices, as well as Azure AD registered devices as well. And as you can see here, in this screenshot, you can see one device has gone pending. So that's one of the hybrid AD join devices. And you can't see a version of the Windows. There's no owner, no MDM, obviously, and there's no last activity data as well. So that's the blocker, and that's we are addressing here. So I would like to discuss why this going in the pending mode. So even as Microsoft mentioned, and this I've seen in the environments as well, the devices which were previously in a OU that was syncing with the Azure AD, so they were properly syncing and they were moved out to a different OU, which is not syncing with Azure AD. So because there's an Azure AD connector running, syncing the on-premises objects into Azure AD, because the device is not there in the OU, the device will go into a soft deletion in the Azure AD environment. And at a later stage, if you're trying to sync the device again, or if you're trying to sync the new OU, new device OU with the Azure AD, it will not go through the same registration process because when you deleted the last the previous device, even though you deleted, the registration information are still there, so it won't or it can't go through the registration process again. Hence, this device will go in the pending state in the Azure AD portal. Or another issue can be during the device registration process. So this is something that's happening by default. The device state will go pending stage for a few minutes. This is during the device registration process. But then in the next stage, or in the next in the same process in the next stage, if the device can't communicate with the Azure AD registration service properly, that means the Azure endpoints, then the device will go on pending stage as well because it can't complete the registration process. And of course, there can be stale devices that have not been used for a while, no user logons, therefore no Azure AD primary refresh token renewals. This is how you can verify whether the device has gone actual in the pending stage. So if you log into the device, into this computer, and if you open command prompt and just type the dsreg cmd status, as you may already know, this is how you can actually see the Azure AD registration details as well as some Intune information from that computer. So the first section, which is the device state, you can see, as you can see here, the state is gone, the Azure AD joined status has set to no, although the domain joined is yes, because it's already connected to the local domain. So that's one way you can find out the Azure AD joined stage, Azure AD joined mode has set to no. And also, if you check the SSO state, that section in the same CMD reg CMD DS reg CMD status, you can see the Azure AD primary refresh token as no. So this is because during the registration process, Azure AD is issuing a refresh token to the device. So that will happen when the user signs in with the organization credentials. And during that process, as I mentioned earlier, the device should see those URLs, as I mentioned there. if the device can't see those URLs, then yeah, the Azure AD PRT will set to no. And as a result, the device will go on pending stage. Yeah, so this is how you can actually address this challenge and fix the issue. Unfortunately, this has to be done like computer by computer. You can't, if you have let's say a different way of doing a scripting, then you can use this, use that method. But otherwise, that has to be done from a CMD elevated mode. And basically you have to leave the computer and join back, same as how you do when the trust relationship is broken of a local AD and the computer. So you remove the device from Azure AD in this case by using dsreg cmd/leave/debug. And you reboot the device. So ideally, during the reboot process, it will join back to Azure AD. But if you can't see any information in the Azure AD even after a few minutes time, you can run the join command, which is the dsreg cmd/join/debug. And after a few minutes, that should complete the process, as well as that should properly registered with the Azure AD as well. So that's how you actually answer the question when the devices go on pending stage. With that, I would like to discuss about the second challenge, proxy network issues. Most of the time, when we are working with the customers, what the customer would say, yes, everything is opened, there are no blockers. But when you actually start working with the devices, when you start enrolling the devices, you will see the enrollment process will not happen. So that's again another major blocker. So according to Microsoft requirements, yes, the proxy server, if there's a proxy server in use, you should use it. You should open the ports 80 and 443. As well as it requires unauthenticated proxy server access to star.manage.microsoft.com. This is mainly for tasks like downloading the classic PC agent and for enrollment tasks as well. So one way to find out when the devices are not getting enrolled into Intune, you will see the hybrid AD join state, everything is fine, but there's no MDM. Even though you do everything in the proper manner, you will still see the MDM as none because the device can't connect to the Intune endpoints. Again, another way to identify or verify that there are proxy or network issues. If you go to the device's settings and access work or school, and you can see the Intune sync information. And also you can see it try to download the Intune agent, but it basically have failed. And so you will see this in the force sync section, as I mentioned. Another way to verify is from the event logs. So device management enterprise diagnostics provider, that's the node you had to go to. And in there, of course, you can see the admin node. When you're browsing, you can see this error. It says 407 proxy authentication is required. So that correlates with the previous proxy unauthenticated proxy access information that I provided. So this is another way to verify, yes, you have network proxy issues. So how to address this challenge? So ideally, you have to make sure the Intune endpoints are whitelisted in firewall, as well as make sure the ports are properly opened, and star.manage.microsoft.com is allowed in the proxy. And if you're using a proxy pack, that should be listed there as well. So there is a learn link provided by Microsoft with all the endpoints. I will post that in the Discord channel, so you can see more information about that as well. So the next challenge or the next issue, I would say it can be scope issues. So there are a number of scope issues, but let's go through. So I would say scope issues are obvious misconfigurations, and it would take a couple of minutes to sort this out. But this should be in your Intune enrollment to-do list, so you won't miss anything. So we set the focus earlier. The devices are hybrid AD joint devices. Because of that, there should be a GPO that should be set up to do MDM auto enrollment. If you don't have the proper device OU set up for this GPO, when the user signs in with the organization credentials, the GPO will not kick in. So the enrollment will not happen. Say you have the GPO properly set up, but if you don't have the automatic enrollment in the Intune portal, if it is set to none or no user groups has been selected, that won't work again. So that's another scope that you have to set up properly. If you have like a pilot, you have to make sure the proper group has been selected, or if you are planning to give access enrollment like Intune license and enrollment to all the users, all should be selected there as well. And also, this is hybrid AD join related. Say you are planning to do hybrid AD join. You don't have any devices at the moment synced with Azure AD. You have to make sure the device OUs are properly synced with Azure AD. So that's basically number one, in order to get the devices synced with Azure AD with the state hybrid AD joined. So these are the settings for the MDM auto enrollment policy. So if you check this policy, you can see it's enabled and it's connecting with the user credentials, which is the organization credentials of that user, and it's been properly allocated, applied to the device OU. And also the auto enrollment scope in Intune. So as I mentioned, it should be either all or some. If it is some, then the proper user group should be selected there as well. If it is set to none, so that means even though the GPO is set up, the enrollment will not happen. And the hybrid AD joined mode, the devices should sync with the hybrid AD join mode. So for that, as you can see in this example, I have selected the UITC workstations OU in this AD structure. So those devices in this OU will get synced. So with that, because we discussed about the sync scopes, especially the Azure AD, hybrid AD joint sync scopes, I would like to discuss the next challenge or the next issue, the SCP, that's the Azure AD service connection points. If you don't have the proper service connection points, the device will not see the tenant information, the proper tenant information when it's going through those registration processes, which results in no Intune enrollment. So what are those Azure AD SCP or the service connection points? Usually, there are two ways you can set up the service connection points. If you're using the Azure AD connector, and if you're using the device options, and if you're trying to connect the hybrid AD join mode from the connector, then the SCP information will get created in the ADSI for that forest. So that's only one SCP can be created per forest. So that's one way you can create that. Or if you're going through a targeted method of, let's say you have 1,000 devices, but you just need, let's say 100 or 150 devices connected to hybrid AD join mode and also Intune enrolled as well. So if that's the case, then you can use a GPO. So the GPO information, there are a few information details that you need to set up in this in the GPO. So let's go through that. So that needs to be set up as well, the SCP information, in order the device to see the Azure AD information. So this is just the thing that just mentioned just now. So when you're planning for hybrid AD join, so ADSI will get created. If not, the GPO should be applied properly. So imagine that you have run the device options, and then the hybrid AD join mode. When you're running the AD connector and doing the last configuration and press sync or complete, then it will create this information in the ADSI. This is a universal location. Same information in every AD, and those two keywords should get created: Azure AD ID and Azure AD name. Chances are when you completed the process, the devices are not getting connected as hybrid AD join devices, and when you come and see the information, maybe the information not accurate. There can be reasons for that as well. So what you can do is you can just remove the previous information and add the proper information there. So that can be done manually, not a problem at all. And then the devices which are in the sync scope will see this ADSI information and will get properly hybrid AD joined. Or the second way, if you are using the targeted method managed by your GPO for a specific number of devices. So in that way, the GPO should be created. Should be create this CDJ and the AAD keys in the registry. They are not coming by default, so you have to create those, as well as you have to fill in those information, those values, tenant name and the tenant ID with the proper information. So you can find the tenant ID from the Azure AD, and if you go to the overview pane, you can see the tenant ID there, as well as the tenant name, the domain.onmicrosoft.com name should be your tenant name. So those are the main challenges that I've seen in environments when trying to enroll the devices into Intune. So it's a mix of both. So as I mentioned earlier, to get the proper cloud managed device in the hybrid environment, the device should go through the hybrid AD join state, and then it should be connected to enroll into Intune. So some obvious observations that I've seen, some can say they are notable observations in the field. So let's go through them as well. So to get the hybrid AD join for the device, the Windows 10 minimum version should be 1809 or later. And if you have users working from home, chances are they are not getting connected to the VPN to acquire GPOs. So proper communication needs to happen. You have to inform the users, yes, you need to connect to the VPN in order to get the GPOs. So that will add the device into hybrid AD join mode, as well as you can set the MDM auto enrollment policy as well. And if your IT team is helping the users to get the devices enrolled, make sure the enrollment device limits are set properly. Default, it's 5 per user, but you can basically set up a group for the IT and change the device limits accordingly. And also, obviously, the licensing issues. The user who is enrolling the device should have the proper license. So ideally, the license should cover the Microsoft Intune part. So up to some troubleshooting help, So there are some tools provided by Microsoft in order to make the Intune journey faster and easier. So first of all, as I mentioned, the dsreg cmd /status, you can find a lot of information about the registration state of the device, what are the issues, and what are the values? Are the values correct? Do you have any proxy issues, or the device getting connected directly? Things like that you can check from the device reg cmd status. And there's a link for that as well. For specific sections in this log, there's an explanation. So I will post the link as well. And also, this is another section in the same command. So you can see when the device is enrolled with Intune, you can see those information there, all the URLs, everything properly populated. So those information should be there in order to get the machine connected with Intune. Event viewer as well. We can't forget the event viewer. So let's say if the devices are not getting enrolled into Intune, you can go through this path. So the same path as I mentioned earlier, device management, enterprise diagnostics provider, and go to the admin node. And you can see when the device is enrolled properly, you can see the MDM enroll succeeded. And if there are errors, you can see the errors as well. So you can properly start troubleshooting those issues. And also, this is again another Microsoft tool running on PowerShell. So it basically helps you to troubleshoot all the device registration issues. So as you can see, if the device is hybrid AD joined, you can use the option number 3, and it will go through the process to identify where are the issues and how to troubleshoot them. As I mentioned, the CP as well, PRT, everything are there. And basically, you can use this tool to collect the logs as well. Also, the link is available. I will post that in the Discord channel. Another tool from Microsoft, again running on PowerShell. So this will make sure the device can actually talk to the Azure AD endpoints. So as I mentioned, that's very important. So this will say, yeah, these are this can be connected, succeeded, or failed. So fixing this will definitely help you to properly enroll your device into Intune as a cloud managed device, and can start that journey. So that's the end of my presentation and my session. I would like to thank, again, for giving me this opportunity. I would like to especially thank Jonas, Somesh, Jannik, and Joey for the effort of making this event a reality. James Robinson, who's in the backstage helping us today with all the controls. With that, yeah, I would like to hand over the controls to Jonas.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Shehan. And I can say that you should go in and follow Shehan's blog. I've been reading his blog for ages now. You've been going on for a while now, right, Shehan?
Yeah. Started a few years ago with anything Microsoft 365, and then I changed the focus to Azure AD and endpoint management. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've been reading that. And I also saw in the slides you talked about the device registration troubleshooter tool.
Yes.
I can recommend that. It's a really good tool.
Yeah,
Okay.
actually, yeah. So that will go through all the steps. Like it can be hybrid AD join, or it can be a different type of join as well. But you can still use that tool to troubleshoot if you have any issues.
Thank you, Shehan. And I can say to everyone watching that this is first time for Shehan speaking, so he did a really good job. Thank you, Shehan. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you, Jonas.
Okay, so I'm actually unsure, James. Are we gonna have a break now for 5 minutes? He's in the back. I know he's listening. Are you there, James?
Yep, we can have a break.
Okay, let's have a break for 5 minutes and get some drinks and all that, and then we go back to the stream, and then we have Andrew coming up with proactive remediations. Yeah, okay. See you in 5 minutes. Bye-bye. Okay, so we are going back. We still have some beautiful music on. Really good job, James. And hey, Andrew, you want to talk about programs, and you are MVP.
Yeah, that's right.
Remember you got another MVP by Microsoft short while ago, right?
Yeah, back in August, so yeah, a few months ago.
Nice. Take it away.
Thank you. Okay, so Proactive Remediations, my favorite tool in Intune. We are working. Okay. So I will start with an introduction to what they are. So Proactive Remediations are a way of running PowerShell scripts within Intune, but better than the standard built-in scripts. If you've run scripts before, you'll know that it's a run once and pray it works, and it'll never run again if it doesn't. So Proactive Remediations gives you more control over that. You can schedule it to run once, you can schedule it to run daily, weekly, hourly, pretty much whatever you want. And it gives you this nice reporting screen so you can see which ones it's run against, which ones it's found issues with, and which ones are now fixed. And because it's got detection and remediation, you've got more control over it. So you can do some queries. So it only runs if certain criteria are met, rather than PowerShell scripts, which just run against everything. So this is how they work. You've got a selection of machines that have a problem. First thing you need to do is see if the machine the script is running against has the problem. If it doesn't, ignore it and recheck depending on whatever schedule you set. So if you set it for every hour go back and just double check. So say, for example, you've got a shortcut that you want people not to put on a desktop, you can check with the shortcut. If they put it back on, the next time it runs, it will remove it again, which is this bit here. So yep, found the problem, remediate the problem, and then recheck again just to make sure it hasn't gone. And the main output you're looking for is an error 1. So if it gives you an error 1, that triggers the remediation script to run. So if we move on to some examples, if anyone's got any questions along the way, just fire them in because I've got plenty of time for Q&A. So this is a very basic check. So in this one, we are looking for notepad.exe. So a simple script, the file is notepad.exe. Does the file exist? If not, I can't find the file. I'm going to exit out and run the remediation script. Otherwise, yep, found it, clean exit. So you can add multiple checks before launching. I tend to put these in the remediation script as well, so that it just does a double check in case between the time of the two run, it somehow appears. We could do firmware updates. So we can, if you look on this one, I'm using a detection variable just to increment rather than having a massive nested if at the bottom here. So we can go through and say, what's the battery status? We can query the WMI namespace and check if it's discharging. And if it is, we can increment our detection variable. We can check the manufacturer. I've done Lenovo in this case because that's just what my laptop happens to be. So is it Lenovo? If it's not, increment again. We can check if the Lenovo Commercial Vantage software is on there, which is the firmware update software for enterprise machines. Because obviously there's no point triggering a firmware update if the software is not there. So yep, that's there. Increment. Check it's running, obviously, and check there's enough disk space, which I've set to 1 gig in this space. in this case, but you can tweak that. And then we're basically just checking if that's more than one. So if you look at the variable, we've triggered it if it's not plugged in, not a Lenovo, the software is not there, or the service isn't running. So if it fails any one of those checks, it will not run the remediation script. If it passes them all, you'll have a detection of 0, and it'll pass through with an exit code of 1, which triggers the remediation script. So the next question will be, can we automate it? Of course you can. So the scripts are encoded into base64 format. So if you're using PowerShell, you've got to make sure that you encrypt it into base64 before you pass it into graph, otherwise it'll kick out an error. So you've got the run as state, the schedule type, frequency, and then you've got your parameters here, and then you create your script. So if you look, you've got your frequency, and you put the scripts into the bits there, it's JSON, and then you pass that into Intune as a JSON through graph, and it will spit it out and add it into Intune for you. If you need to, I'll show you later on. There's a way of decrypting. So here we go. What if I have lost my scripts? Because you'll see in Predictive Remediation, you can see them, but it's a grayed out window, so you can't actually get into them. So you could copy and paste, but there is an easy way of doing this. So here you go. If we're going into Graph Explorer, you get in the address bar, you can see the IDs in there. So you want to go into Device Health Scripts and then the ID, and you'll get your detection and remediation scripts showing. And you can see there it's in base64 encryption. So you'd copy that out and you'd paste it into this website's one I normally use, which you can see you typed in your base64, and there it is underneath in plain text for you to quickly check it's all right and save it into wherever you should have saved it in the first place. And I'll put it back to this one. I've got some links to come, but I'm looking for any questions and answers at this point, if anyone has any. James, Jonas, we got anyone?
No, there's nothing on it. No questions, but I have a question.
Yep, far away.
Okay, so can you put anything inside the base 64 decoder?
As long as it's base 64, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
It's a live website. It does encode and decode depending on what URL you use.
Right.
So it's also a good way. I mean, obviously, if you look at the PowerShell script, I encode it anyway. Somewhere there. If you look at the system text encoding, I encode it as I upload it. But you could, if you wanted, instead of putting plain text in there, you could put the base 64 encoded text.
Okay.
I probably wouldn't, because it's going to be difficult to work out what it does, and every time you want to edit your script, you're going to have to dump it back into a decoder.
Okay, and what do you see as the most used protection remediation script? Like or
disabling fast boot.
Fast boot. Okay.
Yes, I have that on my blog, and it gets probably 10-15 hits per day. Everyone hates fast boot. I don't know why Microsoft insists on putting it on, but disabling fast boot is one. Unpinning the store, another good one. But like the example I put on there, firmware updates is something that you might want to do through that rather than through the application, because it does give you a bit more control over it. Because whilst the software will pop up saying, all right, you need to plug your laptop in, it won't check the disk space, and obviously it can't check if the software is running because the software won't be running at that point. So it just makes it easier to manage.
Okay. And why will we disable fast boot?
Fast boot is it kind of stores the system details in RAM. So if you click start and shut down on your machine, it doesn't do a full shutdown. It saves the state onto the machine. So that, say your user rings up and says, my computer's not running properly, and you say, well, have you restarted it? The answer will be yes, because I shut it down every night. But if you look in the system uptime, the answer will be no, because it's probably been on for 2-3 weeks. And the only way to trigger it with fast boot enabled is to actually do a restart, not a shutdown. So if you turn off fast boot, it means every time they turn their computer off, they are actually turning their computer off.
Okay. So I have 2 more questions.
Mhm.
So I remembered in Predictive remediation there is a success and a failure, right?
Yes.
And can you tell me a little bit more about those 2 parameters that you want to push out for Predictive remediation to listen for in your scripts?
Yep. So it's hang on, if I go back to the basic one. Here we go. So it's exit 0, exit 1. Unlike the detection scripts, it doesn't need some text spitting out as well. It literally just needs the exit code. If you look at compliance scripts, it has to have wording to go with it. So exit 1 means failed, run the remediation script. Exit 0 is a clean exit. So that just ignores it and says it's a safe, clean device.
Okay. And I also saw in the Discord there was a question a couple of days ago, because you can go and ask about Intune if you want to, and I can see Andrew is also answering questions in there on the go. But I saw a question about a person who was trying to do a proactive remediation script, but they were running it in user mode instead of
Absolutely. That's one thing that's always worth looking at. Obviously, it depends what your remediation script does, but if it's running HKey local machine or HKey current user, that's the two standard ones. So one's a user, one's a machine. So if you look here, run as can be system or user. So if you set that to user and you try and run an HKey local machine, it will fail because of permissions, hopefully, unless you've given users admin rights. If you want to hit the HKey users key, it needs to be running as user, otherwise it will run in the system user context, which obviously the user won't see.
Okay, so if the user is not local administrator, can they use proactive remediation as a user context?
They can, as long as it's only hitting the user profile. So HKey current user or C users.
Okay.
Or if you've got custom permissions on CTemp or something like that, they can write to.
All right. So the last question. I didn't prepare any questions, so everyone knows.
No, that's fine.
Asking questions,
I was hoping we'd get a few more, but it's fine. Carry on.
I can get going. So what is the difference between scheduler and proactive remediation, like the normal schedule on Windows?
Proactive remediations gives you a bit more control, because if you do a scheduler, it'll run whatever. So you'd have to put your if statements within whatever script you're running in there. And also they're a lot more tricky to manage because it's not built into Intune, so you've got to deploy them as PowerShell scripts. So you've lost that control. So you're pushing out a PowerShell script. You're praying it works, because we've all seen that PowerShell reporting isn't great from the script section. And then you've got no way of seeing if it's actually run against the machines. So if it's something critical like a firmware update, you want to know that it's happened. But with a scheduled task, without doing a lot of scripting and logic apps and all the rest, it's not going to be easy to get to.
Okay.
And there's one thing I should probably point out, is that remediations are only enterprise license. So if you're on business premium, at the moment you can't have it. But please whinge at Microsoft, because I want them to put under business premium.
Okay, and what about the SKU on Windows? Can we do it on Windows 10 Home?
Well, you wouldn't, because you can't Intune manage them. But Pro and Enterprise will be fine. I think it'll technically run on a business premium, but when you load it up, it pops up saying it's not supported. So it's best to have your enterprise licensing before you put it in place. And I will put these links in the chat at the end, because it's cut off a bit of the end one.
Okay. Yep. Yeah, I have no more questions.
Does anyone
Great
else
job.
have questions?
Yeah. If anyone have any questions, they can just put it in the social media, and we can actually see all the questions.
Yeah, so I will sit here. I'll sit here answering questions all afternoon.
Let's see if anyone will ask any question. Maybe the speakers have the questions. Maybe Joey or no, I'm putting James on the job, because if people want to ask questions, it's gotta be on hot mic. So
the speakers are all expert on these things anyway.
I can see Somesh is trying to get on.
Oh, we're testing you now, James.
Yeah, we are. Unfair.
Yeah, now you are, Somesh.
All right. Thank you. So, Andrew, a question like since many of the customers or like when we interact with them, they are on co-management, and so how is your recommendation for like running this proactive remediations along with like, for example, some workloads are with Intune, some workloads with SCCM, and devices being managed with both. So, what would you recommend having this proactive remediations? Because, for example, fast boot and those things are quite necessary nowadays.
Yes, I would always bump them into Intune,
Mhm.
because I'm guessing you're probably getting Azure AD joined with your co-managed devices. So if you think your SCCM, you've got to build your machine, then you've got to put your SCCM client on, then it's got to check into the SCCM server.
Mhm.
So you're talking probably a couple of hours before anything runs, whereas a proactive remediation runs during autopilot. So anything critical, I'd dump straight into Intune so it gets on there quicker.
Yep. So it basically depends upon how the machines are getting provisioned.
Yes, yeah, exactly. If you've got everything on SCCM, then that's your best bet.
But won't it conflict with SCCM? Because, for example, we do have some custom scripts which sort of so same thing. Like we don't call them proactive, but just it was just detection and then acting upon.
Well, yeah, because you've got your detection in. So if you've got SCCM setting the same
Mm.
setting, then proactive remediations will just ignore it
Yeah.
because it'll detect it's already there and just say, yeah, that fine, that one's clean.
No. All right. Yeah. Thank you.
Got a question from Discord. Do you have any collections of commonly used proactive remediation scripts?
My GitHub has quite a lot. If we go to the last slide, Joey and Niels there have a good selection as well. And I think I'm putting some more together. But I'm always happy to build them because I quite enjoy doing them.
So what I see is that if you have like some kind of way of you are doing stuff over and over again, or if you have something you need to like fix on the go all the time, it happens on some machines, but you don't know which machines it happens on, and you can go in and pretty much use proactive
Yeah,
remediation, right?
you can do, because it's PowerShell underneath, you can do anything with a proactive remediation because Windows ultimately is a load of files, registry keys, and services. So you can manage all of those with PowerShell. So you can do absolutely anything. Obviously, be careful you don't want to go deleting your Windows folder or something, but anything is possible with a remediation.
Nice. Okay, great. I see Joey is also want to ask a question.
Yeah, in the past, I created some proactive remediations, which were then later on added as a built-in policy or setting within Intune. Have you experienced that yourself? And did you rebuild your policy? Let me say, did you remove the proactive remediation and then deployed the built-in policy? Because that should be primary over a proactive remediation, I think.
Yeah, if there's a policy there for it, use a policy. Proactive
Yeah,
remediation should be for the stuff that's not there. Whether you remove the remediation is entirely up to you. It depends on how critical it is, because it will just detect it as clean anyway. So there's no harm leaving it there. It doesn't use any CPU or anything. And if it's something critical, you might want to just double check it's being done.
Yeah, agree.
Ideally, yeah, stick it all in settings
Yeah.
catalog.
Totally agree.
And thank you for your links there, by the way.
Okay, so I think that was it. Andrew, you did a really good job. Is this the first time as well you're speaking on?
It is, yes, first one.
Oh.
Yeah.
Nice. Awesome job.
I'll time better next time.
You should get on next time as well. I think you did a really good job, and Shehan also did. So I'm really happy about that. Shall we go for another break, James?
Yeah, no problem.
See you in 5 minutes. And we should have hot mic right now. Can we hear you, Jannik?
We can hear you.
Awesome. Hey, so you're also the first time speaking, right, Jannik?
Yeah, first time for me.
Okay. I see you have been doing a lot of blocking, really doing some awesome tools, I gotta say. Like it's been incredible to see. You also put in some AI and stuff with Azure, and it's been crazy to follow. It's been really good.
Thank you. Makes a lot of ideas with the community.
I can see you have a little bit of laggy mic, but we'll see how good it goes. And I don't necessarily want to cut you off when we get along, but I'll tell you if it's really laggy. Okay.
Perfect.
Okay. Let's go.
Perfect. Then okay, my name is Jannik Reinhard. I'll present you the topic of Predictive. I'm a architect and yeah, my social media account to follow me. I talk about Intune stuff and also some Azure services. Yeah. Today is first of all the cover bit by Intune. In the area of, I will show you the future of could be the next steps or how future of analytics with help. And then I will also show you example which is already possible to how you can implement this also implement. In the first section I will
Jannik?
Yeah, yes.
Okay. Do you have a mic with a cord on that is not Bluetooth, or are you on your laptop? Or yeah, sorry about this, but it's lacking. It's hard to hear your voice, and we want to hear your voice because you have some good info.
Yeah, sure. To my AirPods, maybe it's better. Give me one.
Let's try the AirPods. And I remember Jan Bakker, he also wrote a Twitter about don't use AirPods, but that could actually save this one. So you just do your thing, Jannik, and I can follow you on the webcam. Let's just give Jannik a minute or so. You have him ready, right, on the cam, James?
Yes, indeed.
Great. Yeah, so that happens. Mics are Bluetooth or something that is made by really good in some cases, but actually AirPods also use Bluetooth. So maybe his battery is just low. I don't know. We will see. I'm using a hardwired mic. I had a great idea to do YouTube, but I haven't done YouTube in a while now. But maybe at some point I'm going to do that again. I can hear you in the back.
Okay.
Let's try again. You ready, Jannik?
Okay.
Maybe you could just put
Good,
off your video camera as well, Jannik.
Okay.
Yep. Let's try.
Hopefully it's now better.
We will see. Are you there, Jannik? We can't hear you right now. Okay, Joey, are you here as well?
Yeah, I'm here. Yes.
Okay. Can we do a little change? Sorry about everyone. We know how it is live, so this can happen. Can we go ahead and go with you, Joey?
Yeah, give me 2 minutes. Give me 2 minutes.
Okay, great. So let's just have a break for, let's say, let's have another 5 minutes, James, just so we have our stuff going on in the background as well. So let's have 5 minutes, put on some
Joy
good
of
music.
technology and live streams, hey?
Yeah, exactly. See you in 5.
You may need to add your presentation back in.
Okay.
There we go. You hear me now?
Yes, can you hear me as well?
Yeah, it's really good.
Okay,
much better.
perfect.
So even though we said that Joey will be up next in the chat, we're gonna keep with you, Jannik. Good job. You got it fixed.
Yes, I switched to wired headset now.
Nice
Okay.
one.
Good. Then sorry for the technical issues. Now I want to proceed with my presentation. Maybe I repeat also the starting. I want to present you the predictive analytics with Intune. I will show you how you can implement a kind of predictive analytics with help of data from Intune. My name is Jannik Reinhard. I'm workplace solution architect, and on the bottom you can see my social media accounts where I regularly post blogs about Intune analytics and also some solutions with help of Azure services. What I want to show you today is the capabilities of Intune, what Intune already delivered for analytics and also as data producer. Then I will show you the future of analytics. What could be the next possible solution, what you can build with help of Intune to optimize your analytics environment. And then I will show you a concrete example what you can already implement today. In the capabilities, this is my first section of the presentation. I will show you the out-of-the-box possibilities, what Intune delivers, and I will also show you how you can use Intune as data producer, or more or less to export data from Intune, what you can use to further process via your custom solutions. The out-of-the-box possibilities what Intune deliver is endpoint analytics. There you can find some out-of-the-box reports like a startup performance. In the startup performance report, you can see slow booting devices. You can see processes which slow down your environment in regards of boot times. You can see these processes, and you can also use this data to solve this, or to optimize your general boot performance in your company. In endpoint analytics, you also have the proactive remediations. Andrew showed you really nice presentations and deep dive in the proactive remediations. I think I will skip this part so far. But you also have some other reports in this endpoint analytics, like application reliability, where you can see which apps in your company crash. You can also drill down. You also have a detailed single device view. In the end, endpoint analytics is built like you have, first of all, the whole environment, and then you can also drill through to only see a dedicated device to analyze why a user compliant, why a user could have crashing apps or slow boot times, and also some other stuff. It's a really nice tool, or a really nice report within Intune. The endpoint analytics is worth to have a look at this. And what you also have out of the box in Intune is a lot of different reports. The reports are really focused on the different categories within Intune. When you go to applications, you get a lot of application related reports, like which applications has error during installations. If you go in the device section, you also have a lot of different reports to see how is your compliance state, how is the state of your policies, to see if you have policies which fails on many devices. Also here you have endless possibilities. And this third part, what we also have in Intune, is the data warehouse. The data warehouse is a structured data storage where you also have history. You can use the data warehouse. There is a Power BI connector to build dashboards, custom dashboards. Also here I published a blog where I also provide you a sample dashboard what you can use and further develop. It's really nice. The connector also automatically build the relations from the different tables. So now I will jump to the next slide. In this slide, I will show you how you can also extract data out of Intune to work further with them. I think every one of you already knows the Graph API. It's a really powerful API where you can more or less export everything what you can also saw in the Intune console, but also in more or less all other Microsoft products. Everything what you can see on the web page is more or less also possible to export via Graph. Graph has also a reporting API for Intune. I'm not sure if you already saw this. It's cool if you want to export a big amount of data like the discovered apps. There's a report API. You call this API, then the backend will calculate or generate a CSV file, and then you get a second call where you can download this report. It's a really easy and fast way to export a big amount of data, or like all managed devices, it's a little bit faster than you use this report API instead of a normal graph calls. And there's a second possibility, log analytics. In Intune, you can define a log analytics workspace, which is linked to your environment, where also a lot of really nice information are exported from Intune. You don't have to take care about this export. It's done under the hood. You get here device informations, but you also get log events like when someone changed a policy, when someone created a new application objects and stuff like this. Also here you can find endless possibilities. I think there are a lot of solutions already in the community where you can look in. It's also really powerful what you can do with this log analytics integration in Intune. Okay, then let's jump to my second section in the presentation. Here I will show you the further future of analytics, where we are today, and how can the future look like. I think every one of us is not able to get all reports, and this is quite a lot, which are provided in Intune monitored. No one has the time, and no one want to go through all the different reports every day. And the goal should be go away from reports, use notifications. This means you are only interesting if something happened in your environment, or if something get worse, like application installation errors or policies which are not applied to your devices, or if you have an high decreasing of your compliance state in your environment. This is something which is important for you, which is something where you want to be aware on a really early stage. And this is the reason, focus on alerting. This is really important. And also you want to go away from the reactive and you want to become proactive. You will not longer analyze problems when a user complained, when a user has an issue. You will go really proactive and will really directly have the information and will directly solve the issue when this occur without a bigger impact for the end users, because the biggest goal in the end is to provide the end users a really good experience. And what you also have to know, if you use the machine who analyze your data, which is provided from Intune, a machine has more eyes than a person. A machine can consider regional trends. He can consider public holidays, a lot of different aspects which can the machine use to see if this is an issue, if this is a real issue, or this is a normal behavior. Like on Mondays, always the failure rate is higher than on Friday because on Monday the PC was shut down for 2 days, only as example. And to directly become this proactivity, I will show you a solution which is really easily to implement, that you get notified when an issue occur. This means we have a lot of data already in Intune, and you only have to export this data. You have to analyze this data with help of Azure services, and then notify you as administrator, as responsible person, when it's really necessary and when there is an issue. With this, I will show you the solution, how you can, only one example, but you can also apply this example to a lot of other information in Intune. I will show you the example, how you can detect app installation errors. What you need to implement exactly this is first the graph endpoint. This means you have to find out how you can get the data. You can find the data in the Intune portal, but you need to export this data via PowerShell or some other programming languages. And for this, the Edge browser has a really nice network monitor. This means you only have to goes through a page where you can find the information, and in the network monitor, you can find the endpoint. You can see if it is a GET or a POST request. You can also see the content, and then you can adapt this as you need it for your use case. But there's also a really nice tool. This is the Graph X-Ray. This is an Edge plugin. You can use this plugin to automatically generate PowerShell code for graph calls. This means you not have to find the right call in a network monitor. This tool will also will show you all calls which was executed during your page loading, and then directly generate code for you, not only in PowerShell, also in some other languages, what you can directly use. So what you also need is a cognitive service anomaly detection instance. This is really easy to deploy. You have to go to the Azure portal. You have to search for cognitive service anomaly detector, then click on create. You have to insert a name for this resource and resource group in subscription, and that was it. Then you have an API endpoint for the cognitive service. The cognitive service is in the end a machine learning model which was trained and performs really good from Microsoft. You get an URL, what you can use to call this model, and then a key to authenticate on this cognitive service. Okay, when you have fulfilled this prerequisite, you also need a Teams channel for sure, where you can receive the notification. Also, this is more or less straightforward. Create the Teams channel, add a connector. Here you need a webhook connector, and you have to copy the URL, what you later need in the script to send this notification in when an anomaly occurs. And last but not least, we also need an automation account. We need something which regularly schedule your script, which calls for anomaly detection, which send a Teams notification. This will be done via a runbook in an automation account, but also here the creation is more or less straightforward. Enter a name, select your subscription resource group, and that was it more or less. Yeah, then for authentication on Graph, we want to export the application installation errors via Graph. To authenticate on this automation account on the Graph endpoint, we need a service principal. For this, you can create app registration and a name, and then you have to add the Graph permission for device management apps read all. And also, this is really straightforward. Then you have to copy out the information like tenant ID, app ID, and the app secret, which you have to add in a variable in your automation account. Yeah. When we have it, all prerequisites are done. This means the next step is you can copy my script, what you can find on my GitHub repository. You only have to adapt some variables like the sensitivity, how sensible is your script, and how often you get alerts when there is an increasing of the error rates of app installations. And that was it more or less. You can put in the code in this in the automation account in a runbook. You can make a test run, and when it works, you can create a schedule that it runs once per day, once per hour, as you want. Yeah. Now to sum the whole thing up, how does it work? To also repeat this. The first step is we export the data, what we need from Graph. Then we need time series data. This means we need a timestamp and a value. We export exactly this data for all our applications. Then we loop through and send each time series to the cognitive service anomaly detector. he will analyze your data, and based on the history, he decide, is it an anomaly? Did we have a high increasing of installation errors, or is it a normal behavior? When they get this response from this cognitive service, we have to see in this response, you see, is it an anomaly? Is it a positive anomaly? This means increasing. Is it a negative anomaly, a decreasing? You have to decide for your use case what is important. And then based on this decision, is it an anomaly or not, you can send out a webhook to your Teams channel to notify you that there's an issue. Yeah, on this slide, you can see the references I use. You can see my blog post where I explain exactly this implementation more in detail. Here you have a step-by-step description how you can set up the whole thing. But you can also check out another blog from mine where you can see the different capabilities of analytics in Intune, where I make a summarization what is already possible in Intune and where I see some gaps in this area. Yeah, to have a sum up of the whole thing, the most important thing to implement such solution is data. Data is a new gold. When we have this data, to analyze this data, it's then not a big deal. Don't use dashboards. Implement alertings. I think it's more important because you can have thousands of dashboards, but this will not increase the user experience or increase your productivity. You have to spend time to look at this dashboard. It's better if you implement alertings. And also consider that the computer is sometimes smarter also as a person. And computer can consider more aspects in the alertings, in the analysis of the data than a human can do. Yes, that's what was it from my side. I don't know, Jonas, did we already have a question in the chat?
I don't see any questions now. Nothing on the hotline, no. I can just check over here. No questions, but I have questions.
Okay.
I've written something down. So you talked about the cognitive service, right?
Yes.
It's new to me, this this robotic kind of way of thinking, of doing stuff. And I really like that you're talking about don't build dashboards, rely on your machine learning robots, do some proactive alerting instead of visualizing what is wrong and et cetera, and then do action on it. But the cognitive service, I don't know if you talked about it. I don't remember. Did you talk about the licenses around cognitive service?
No, I did not talk about this. You have to pay for calls. This means each calls costs, I don't know, 0.001 cent. It's not really expensive, but it's on call base. For sure, if you spend this cognitive service, it can also be expensive. But for this implementation I showed you, when you run this once per hour, I think you will not reach €1 per month.
Okay, and what I'm interested in hearing about, how did you find out that you can combine the Graph API and Intune and together with the cognitive service?
Yes, I hate dashboards. Maybe you heard it in my presentation, and I was thinking about how can you build a more smart way to analyze data. I'm only interested to get informed about real issues and not to check everything in different sections in Intune. And I explore what Microsoft already can deliver in this direction, and this is the way how I find the way to use cognitive service for anomaly detection to analyze the data what Graph already deliver.
Okay, so the service is trained by Microsoft. Do we know? Do we have data on how well it is trained or how it is trained? And
I can say it performs really good. For sure, it's based on you, how good your data are. if you send time series, which only keeps 1 week, for sure it's not as accurate if you have a history of a full year. In my example, you have not a long history. To have a long history, you also have to combine this with data storage. This means you export the data on Graph, you store it in a storage account or in a SQL DB, and then you can keep more history, and for sure then you have better analysis of this cognitive service.
Okay, so the more data you give it, the better it can react. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay, nice. And you also said about exporting of discovered apps, and I have seen a lot of talk about seeing apps on our devices, because as you know, in Intune we cannot see all our apps that is installed. Can you tell me a little bit more about which discovered apps you are trying to mention?
Yeah, Intune has the possibilities to show you the control panel apps. This means to see also the apps which are not pushed from Intune, apps which are pre-installed from Windows or was installed from a user. You can export this also via Graph, via the single calls for individual devices. But as already mentioned, you can also use the report API to get a full scope of control panel apps which are installed on your device. It's helpful to identify, for example, unmanaged apps on your environment. For example, if you, I don't know, block Skype and you see a user has Skype installed, you can find it with his discovered apps.
Okay, interesting. I'm gonna look into that. So last question. If there's, I can just check if there's any other questions than me. Okay, so next question. How do you build the queries? I know the portal, you can go in and build it on, it's a custom query language you showed in the start, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you build it inside the portal on the go, or do you go to like Visual Studio to make your code, or?
In the end, the solution I present you is fully based on PowerShell. The queries, as already mentioned, I use the network monitor to find the right Graph endpoint, and then I use the Graph Explorer. This is also a nice tool from Microsoft to play around and get exactly the data I need, and then I write my code in Visual Studio Code and publish this to the automation account.
Okay. Thank you, Jannik. And
Thank you as well.
The first time. That was your first time. You did an
Yes.
awesome job.
Many thanks, and also thank you for organizing the whole session to the whole team.
You're welcome. Okay, so next up is gonna be Joey. And we are not gonna have a break this time because of our technical issues. We're just gonna go straight to Joey. So Joey, are you here?
Yes, I'm here. Yes, hello. Hi, Jonas.
Hello, Joey. Hey. So you're gonna talk a little bit about, let me just find the subject. You're gonna talk about Azure VPN on Windows on workplace devices.
Yeah, actually the Azure VPN Gateway, which can be used to reach resources within Azure from modern workplace devices, because they can be anywhere at any time. You need a connection to reach those resources within Azure. So that's where I blogged about probably a year ago. Yeah, and I translated the blog basically to this slide, and I'll tell you about how to implement it and what it can do for you.
Okay, take it away.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's basically already the intro. So again, I'm going to tell you about the Azure VPN Gateway, how you can implement it, and how you can use it from your modern workplace devices. Let me switch to the table of contents. This is actually a true-based story. We were implementing, designing and implementing our infrastructure when COVID-19 came up. So we had a design which we were implementing. Then we got COVID-19. So yeah, people got home, started to work from home. How do we solve those issues? What do we need for it? The Azure VPN Gateway, how do we install it? All that kind of stuff is within these contents. So I'm going to talk you through them. I'll start with the first one. This was basically how we designed the infrastructure when we were talking to this customer. The customer wanted some notebooks, which were basically in the offices whether it's the headquarters or one of their branch offices, doesn't matter. Devices should be Azure AD joined and Intune managed, which is basically the modern workplace concept. And from all the offices, they have a site-to-site VPN to Azure, which basically was perfect for them because they only worked from the office. Other services which they were using, like Outlook, SharePoint, Teams, all those things are internet facing. So they didn't need a VPN for that. And again, because they were working in the office always and the site-to-site VPN to Azure was there, it was no issue. Within Azure, they were running a few virtual machines, some SQL databases, and Azure Files, which is basically a simple file share. It's behind the camera, but there's a small note that most ISPs block port 445 as outgoing traffic, which means you can't reach Azure Files, or let's say a file share via the Internet Protocol. So you need a VPN or a secure connection to your backend to reach Azure Files, and that was not really an issue until, and that's the next slide, we got COVID-19. So that was the moment when people moved from the office to their homes and started working remotely. And there were a few people who are unable to reach their Azure files, or let's say their file share. So we had an issue right there. Within this file share, there were some legacy files which were used for accounting and stuff, and they needed it right away. So we needed to implement something to reach those Azure file shares. And we were thinking about different kind of solutions, like a Palo Alto Global Connect to somewhere, or a virtual Palo gateway in Azure. But we came up with an Azure Virtual Gateway, which is, to my opinion, a better solution because I'm basically Microsoft first strategy. And we basically built this in an infrastructure as a codeway, but I'll show you how to install it, or let's say deploy with a few simple steps, because it's pretty straightforward. Well, within the Azure portal, we deploy a new Azure Virtual Gateway. We have to fill in some settings over there, like an instance name, which doesn't matter. The region, of course, as close to your resources. We select a gateway type, where VPN is the default, and VPN type root-based is also the default, which is it's fine for now. It doesn't matter. There are a few SKUs available. SKU1 Gateway 1 is one of the cheapest ones. Azure VPN Gateway can be very, very expensive, from let's say 100 euros a month to more than 1,000 a month. And pricing is different in terms of total supported connections, total bandwidth, throughput, all that kind of stuff. So choosing the right SKU is important. This customer only had like 100 people, so we were good with the VPN Gateway 1, which is not the cheapest, but one of the cheapest SKUs available. And we chose for generation 1, where generation 2 is available, but Gateway 1, the simplest one, is not available in generation 2. So we just pick generation 1, it's fine for now. Of course, you need to create a new virtual network where all these resources are living in. So you can do that via create virtual network. I'll skip to the next page where you can see that right away. And here we configure some subnets. This is a screenshot from my environment where I have some AVD running. So I picked an existing network, but the last columns are the VPN gateway configurations, and these are added by default when you install the Azure VPN Gateway. So I didn't change anything into this. It's just basic, or by default, let's say it. Then we have to configure the VPN gateway with some other settings, like a public IP address. If you choose basic, you get a dynamic IP address. If you pick standard, you get a static IP address, which doesn't change, of course. Quite important, because in the VPN gateway profile, we configure a host name, which in this case is a FQDN, not an IP address, but still important to have a standard IP address. And we have to select create a new IP address, because most people don't have a public IP address reserved in that tenant. If you have so, you can use existing. One important note, if you deploy the Azure VPN Gateway and you have to select create new IP address, that can take up to 45 to 60 minutes, and sometimes even longer than 60 minutes to deploy, because the public IP address has to be registered, and that costs the most of time within the deployment. So in this case, I needed a new IP, which means the deployment will take quite some time. My assignment is static, and is grayed out because I choose standard by public IP address. Active mode and configure BGP doesn't matter to me right now, and disabled is the default one. And then the deployment starts. And reminder, the deployment will take up to 60 minutes because we needed a new IP address. Once the deployment is completed, we go to the Azure portal, and there we have to configure the point-to-site configuration within the Azure VPN Gateway. It's a different page within this Azure VPN Gateway where we configure the point-to-site. There are a few important things, which is the address pool. This is the subnet where the endpoints are living in when they connect to this VPN connection. So they get an IP address within this subnet. I picked a 24 range over here because my VPN Gateway SKU does not support more than 250 connections. So one subnet was enough for me. Tunnel type, I picked OpenVPN. For me, perfect right now. And as an authentication type, I picked Azure Active Directory because I always want to rely on Azure Active Directory if possible. Few important things. These come back later on in the VPN profile. The tenant configuration is by default. And in the end, we have the tenant ID. The audience we have to fill in is the application ID of the Azure VPN client, which we deploy later on. So you see that in one of the next slides. The issuer is a bit different from the tenant, but the tenant ID is also the same. This is the tenant ID where we are connecting to. In this last field, there's an important thing, and that is this last /. If you don't set this /, the configuration can't be saved. You get an error, which is not really clear, but that's an important one. If you don't configure this /, it won't save. And it's not kind of a bug, it's just required somehow. Then we need the Azure AD Enterprise app. By opening this long URL, you get this permission view over here, where you can accept the permissions via a global admin. And then we have the Azure VPN Gateway application within Azure in our enterprise applications. Over here, you see this application ID, and this application ID should meet, and then I'll go back to the previous slides, should meet this audience field. These are always the same. By the way, this URL is meant for Azure Public. If you have, if your environment is running in Azure Germany or Azure Gov or maybe Azure China, you need a different URL. It's a bit different. It's somewhere in my blog. I'll show you later on. And then we deploy the Azure VPN client. The VPN client is still available in the store for business, but as we all know, this one will be retired in the first quarter of next year. So you can surely install it via winget. The VPN client is already available over there, and you can install it via this simple command over here. I added some parameters, but you probably don't need them. Winget install Azure VPN client would be enough. I don't go into depth on how to deploy this this application with terms of assignment and that kind of stuff, because I think everybody knows how to. So I'll go to the next part, and that's the most difficult part of the configuration, and that's the VPN profile. The VPN profile is an XML file with a lot of parameters. Within the Azure portal, if you go to the Azure VPN Gateway and then to the subpage point-to-site configuration, we can download the VPN client. You probably think that this is the application itself, but it's basically not. It's the by Azure prepared VPN profile with all kinds of stuff in it, like the server URL, maybe some extra issuers, tenants, all these kind of stuff is pre-configured for you. But this default VPN profile is meant for a manual VPN connection. That means that if a user is using the Azure VPN client on their endpoint, they have to connect to the VPN gateway themselves with the connect button. In an ideal world, you won't need to connect manually, and we can automate this. So I basically modify the default XML to an always-on VPN, and that's a cool stuff. I have an example from it in my GitHub, and I'll show you what you have to modify in this example, which I'll share with you. These are quite some steps. First one, and that's the most important one, is line 5, where you modify the trusted network detection parameter. This is the DNS suffix from your corporate network. So if your DHCP server is sending out contours openlocal as DNS suffix, then you fill in contours openlocal as your trusted network detection. The endpoint will at that moment recognize if it's in the corporate network or not. And if it's in the corporate network, it won't connect to VPN because we have this site-to-site connection in the corporate office. And if the trusted network detection is not recognized, so the DNS suffix is different from what we expect, then we encounter that we are connecting remotely from home or for somewhere else. And that means that the VPN gateway is reachable via the VPN app and is connected automatically. That's the most important one. In terms of VPN, always on VPN. On line 9, we have to modify the server URL list, which is in the default VPN profile, which we have downloaded over here in the previous slide. Same for the issuer, which is the same as what we configured in the point-to-site VPN gateway a few slides back. Same for the tenant parameter. And then we come up with the name parameter. And this one is exactly the same as our VNet name, where the VPN gateway is living in. So if you create a new virtual network while deploying the VPN gateway, you have to remember the VNet name because you need it in this part of the configuration. YFQDN, fully qualified domain name, is also in the default VPN profile, which we downloaded before. So we have to copy it from the default one to our newly created XML, which is based on, in this case, my example. And of course, the hash and the server secret. These are the only things which you need to modify, but there are multiple lines in this, but these are basically standard. You can always use them if you're using this VPN connection as always on VPN. It's pre-configured for you. Then, if we save the VPN profile, we have to upload it into Intune in our configuration profile and deploy it to the endpoints. I'm not going to tell you step by step how to deploy it to the endpoints because I assume that everybody knows how to deploy a custom UMA URI. So we create a new custom UMA URI deployment profile, give it a name, and we fill in our UMA URI. And this one is quite important because the green part of this path is the actual name the user will see in his VPN profile while connecting. So that's basically the name, let's say corporate VPN or corporate VPN connection, whatever you want. That's the name the user will see on his endpoint. I'm not sure if you can use spaces between this name, so I always used these small lines between every part of the name, just to be sure. Of course, we select data string XML, we upload the XML, and we deploy the XML to the endpoints. And then we have some user experience. In the PowerPoint slide, I'll have a simple GIF. My page is gone. No, there it is. Okay. Then we have some user experience. After the VPN client, the application, and the profile is being deployed to the application, to the device, the user gets this notification. He has to accept the connection once. I'm actually not sure why. Never figured out why, but never tried to figure out why actually. So the user clicks continue, sees his VPN connection, which is the name from the previous field, which we set over here. This green part is shown to the user right here. We click connect. The user gets a new pop-up where he selects the current logged on user, and then he's connected. This is only needed the first time they connect to this VPN connection. The second time, Windows Hello takes over, assuming that you use Windows Hello in a modern workplace device. What happens? Okay, so we have a small GIF over here. The streaming method we use can't play GIFs, so this is basically a static image right now. What happens over here is I'm running my device in my home network, where my DNS suffix is in this case mshome.net, which is different from the trusted network path, trusted network detection parameter I configured in my profile. That means that this VPN connection should connect automatically. And if I click disconnect, it will automatically reconnect. It's always in a loop. It will keep connecting as long as the DNS suffix is not the same as we have in our trusted network detection parameter. So then we have a connection, and then we can reach Azure resources from anywhere, at any place, anytime. How does that look? In this case, I picked a simple file share, the Azure files, which was not available via port 445 over the public internet. I connected my VPN. I see my drive mapping over here. And if I do a net use, I'll see my drive mapping with an internal Azure IP address, which was within my Azure VNet. So I can now reach Azure resources via a private network, via this VPN connection from our endpoint. For some kind of services, you probably don't need this because some resources are available via the public internet, but things like this, you always want an internal connection, a private connection to your data. And that's basically the way how I think you can reach internal resources within your Azure data center from a modern workplace device with an always-on connection via the Azure VPN Gateway. I have some lessons learned. First one we come up with already, which is port 445, which is blocked by most ISPs. Here in the Netherlands, it is blocked always. And there is a parameter in the VPN profile which does not work. It's a bug, and that is about the exclude parameters, exclude root parameter. If you want to exclude specific routes from your VPN connection, you can't do that. It's a bug. It doesn't work. There is a GitHub issue over here, which is GitHub issue 62842, but that's somehow closed. People are still complaining that it doesn't work and want a fix, but Microsoft is not giving any attention to this. So if you need exclude routes, this doesn't work for you. And last but not least, I have some references for you. It's my blog, where I tell you how to configure this step by step with some more information. I have the example VPN profile, which you can use and which you can modify with the downloaded VPN profile. An Microsoft doc with the Azure AD VPN client information. And all the links how you can consent the Azure VPN client app within your tenant, where you have to give permissions to it. That's basically the end of my session already. I really want to thank you for listening and for being active in this community. Special thanks to Jonas and to Somesh for inviting me and doing my first session. I hope you liked it, and maybe until next time. If you have any questions, please reach out to me, and I'll try to help you.
Great job, Joey.
Thanks.
That was perfect. You also first time for you, right?
Yeah. First time. Yeah, correct. Yeah. Let me get a drink.
Yeah. Yeah, you could try. Yeah, quickly.
Yeah, so this is basically how I think you can reach Azure resources on a modern device anywhere, any place, anytime via a private connection. And I think it's perfect because it completely relies on Azure AD, which is my primary identity provider, if that's possible. I won't pick another one if Azure AD is available. That's how I think about it.
Nice. And I know you are ready to answer questions if anyone has any questions on the go after your presentation and on the Discord.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, sure.
Where you are active. That's great. So I was thinking about that we should just take a 5 minutes break. Again, we didn't have one before. So let's take 5 minutes. And James, you are also here, right?
Yes.
Great. And you're also doing a great job, by the way. Credit to you as well. So let's take 5 minutes and let's wrap it up. Not wrap it up. Sorry about that. Not wrap it up. We're going to continue. We have Somesh coming on next, where he's going to talk about bring your own device, Bane or Bones. Bane,
Yeah.
no, Boon or Bane.
Boon or Bane.
Boon or
yes.
Bane.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's coming up next. Okay, 5 minutes break from now. So we are back, and just to finish, Joey, you also have a really good blog. He's been writing for a long time. I follow him as well, and I know you can find him on social media, especially on LinkedIn and Twitter. So now we have Somesh. Hello, Somesh. You looking fine?
All good. Yeah.
You're looking good. I know you've been sick the last couple of days, a little bit up in your throat. So yeah.
Yep. Still coping up, but excited to be here today.
Thank you. Okay, so let's go, Somesh. You got the scene.
All right. So thank you and welcome everyone. So I am Somesh Pathak, Microsoft MVP in Enterprise Mobility, and streaming live from Stockholm. So I would be present today talking upon BYOD, the most buzzed and most debated topic. That is it a boon or it's a bane for the organization? And yep. So we will be talking upon today like what is BYOD and what forces us or what enables us for going for bring your own device, and then the obvious question that why or why not. Do we have alternatives for BYOD? And some security controls, because that's what when we talk about enabling the personal devices, obviously we should have security controls, and some interesting facts that we should have, why we should have BYOD. So if we look at the current adoption rate, it's not a surprise that the bring your own device, that is we generally call the BYOD, has been into industry from since 2010. So we have seen that it has been on the rise since the smartphones were introduced into the market. Employees have always started, or the users have always preferred to use their own personal devices to access corporate data, whereas at the same time organizations have struggled or they have tried to control how you access your corporate data, what measures should be there for security. With the zero-day attacks coming and the vulnerability increasing, secure organizations are more prone and they are more vulnerable to the data. So the numbers speak itself that 95% already organizations have already allowed the users to use the personal devices before pandemic, And as you also saying that pandemic was something which changed the mobile landscape. So after pandemic, that is COVID-19, we have seen that 85% organizations have started implementing the bring your own device philosophy or the approach. So and 87% of organizations depend upon on their users how they access their corporate data. With when we talk about the corporate data, like for example M365, the complete suite of applications is the primary driver here, which because everyone wants the employees to be productive on the go. So these numbers speak about itself that why we should have BYOD, but yes, the debate should go on. So let's define or let's understand what this bring your own device or BYOD is called. It's a funny thing also that sometimes it's also referred to as bring your own disaster, because when we speak to security guys, they say that it's you are opening up the plethora, basically opening up the Pandora box for everything to land up into the organization. So it's just a jargon which we use to say that enabling your employees or users to access the corporate resources whenever, wherever they want to access it. So simply speaking about that, it's a term where or a philosophy or a concept where you allow your users to access your corporate data on the go, basically. So at the same time, it's also defined that it's a minimum standard protocol or minimum standard policy that you define or organization define that you should have on the mobile devices, that should be minimum viable product or minimum standard, that yes, we allow you to access corporate data, but your device or the device should be meeting at least these certain requirements, these certain parameters. For example, it could be that you should have a latest security patch level, you should have a antivirus or anti-malware product installed on a device, and so on. So there's no basic thumb rule that we will be covering in the coming slide also, but it's just that certain guidelines are defined by every organization, which allows you to enforce before users are allowed to access the corporate device access data. So when we speak about BYOD, the important thing to understand here for organization perspective or a user perspective is that the device is users, whereas the data that you or users would be accessing is the corporate responsibility or the corporate data. So that's why when we speak about BYOD, we speak about restrictions also. That yes, you are allowed to access your data, corporate data, but at the same time, we as an organization will also imposing certain restrictions there. So as I said, that there is no thumb rule or there is no single point of blueprint that can define a BYOD for every organization at all, right? So this is how like what we define commonly as BYOD. We just talked about it, that you can enable your laptops, you can enable smartphones, you can enable Mac OS, Windows devices, any device which a user can bring into your office or on the go to access corporate data. Then we speak about like what, why, or why not. Why basically first that why BYOD or what enables us that we say that we should go for BYOD. So as we just discussed that pandemic, which was like COVID-19, which we no one likes it about it, that's still going on. That which was the one which forced organizations to think out of the box. That conventionally, every one of us was coming to office, 9 to 5 office work, shift timings. We were not allowed to access anything from our phones. VPN was not there, or VPN was there, but for example, like always on VPN on those things were not there. And this is the thing which forced basically organizations to think that okay, restrictions are there, government does not allow us to go to office. People are also are fear that if I step out of the home I might get sick. So at the same time the show must go on, the business should run. So then this is the concept which helped organizations to, yes, the users want to be productive, we want to be safe. So why not ask users that you have your own device, the device you should have of your own choice. You want an iPhone, you want Android, you want a Mac, all right, you have it, and we allow you with certain restrictions to enroll into this one. So COVID-19 was the primary thing that would say allowed force it into business. Then the new normal way of working that we just said that you are working from a remote locations. Many, for example, in India, people travel to their hometowns, villages or small cities, and tier B and tier C cities, and that was becoming the new normal way of working. Everywhere across the world, people stayed at home for months and years, and that was the people shifted their office locations to the home, and the complete setup was done at the office home locations. So that's the normal way of working, new way of working, where you are productive at the same time. At the same time, there were companies were also thinking about the cost and the ownership of these managing those devices. For example, shipping the complete laptop or desktop to users and owning them and shipping them to users was a massive cost to companies. Organizations were fighting at the time of pandemic with the increasing cost and fluctuation. At the same time, they were also thinking about cutting down cost on the inventory purpose. So this was one of the drivers which helped organizations that yes, if users are, or if employees are allowed to have their own devices, then we cut heavily on the ownership of hardware at least. Then, thank to the modern device solutions, that for example, MDM solutions, Microsoft Intune, and other MDM vendors, they also pitched in. They worked hand in hand with this situation and the companies that yes, we have the new modern way of working, and we have new settings which we work allow you to control more on the device and allow at the same time giving user also much more control on their personal data. So the modern warfare of the MDM solutions, which is still ever growing, helped also in the driving for BYOD. For example, in Intune, we have different ways of allowing users to enroll their devices. If you talk about Android, that's Android work profile, then a corporate device work profile. If you talk about iOS, then it's a user driven, which is now the latest thing going on. So different means were there. At the same time, then we wanted that user should be able to access the business applications on the go. For example, if you, as in the previous sessions, we were looking like you have the Azure VPN. You, for example, you are traveling to your hometown or you are working from home, and you still have that legacy VPN, which does not allow you to access the on-prem solution. So you still require some additional infrastructure. So at that point of time, it was additional cost which everyone avoided, right? So allowing you, for example, the timesheet application which every company or nowadays the VPN tunnel that we have from Intune on our devices is allows you to access corporate data file share servers on the go, even from a mobile device. You can AirPrint, you can access your file share servers using Microsoft Tunnel, and there's endless solutions to it. Then on top of it, that you get a more granular control over the connected cloud applications, right? The You can use Microsoft and app protection policies, for example, to have a much more granular control. You restrict what is allowed, what is not allowed to cut, copy, paste. You restrict your idle session timeout. You restrict your token sharing, etc. So organizations at the same time allowing users to have their own devices, they got a much more control on the data that was being accessed from those devices. Right. So basically, I would say that there are endless options which were enabled for drivers, but these are the main thing which helped after pandemic. The When we talk about the last 2 3 years, that what led to this rise in the BYOD, that is bring your own devices. Yep. Uh, then when we talk about yes, why we want, then obviously there is a debate. There's always a question that why not. Right. So since we discussed that it's a GIF, which is not allowed in this session, so it's a yes or no question. When our current organization, when I'm talking to the security personals, guys in our team, there's a belief that no BYOD. So because we know that these devices, mobile devices, are a easy attraction for vulnerabilities or malware. For example, these are easily compromised devices. Users, when we talk about that, you have their own device. It's used. We generally play around with our own devices. We know that this is in our control. We can play around with it, and that's the security risk which comes first in the mind of security guys. That yes, users might be playing around with these devices. Should we allow them access to everything or not? Right. So there's a long series of things or the questions or debate we can have, that why not BYOD. So let's first go to the positive side of story, that why BYOD. Then we will also touch upon that why not BYOD, because every coin has a two side of stories. We should also discuss the negative parts. So, but first positives, that a recent study have shown that when you enable or when we enable the BYOD, or you allow users to access or make the productive on the go, they are much more productive, right? Uh, they are much more flexible. It gives much more flexibility to the users or our employees. For example, think that when you wake up in the morning, almost all of us, the first thing that we do is check our emails, check our Teams, and reply to conversations going on Teams, check our calendar. So you are much more productive. You are much more flexible, and it improves your performances also. I will be touching upon certain figures in the end, which proves that when we are working from our own mobile devices, we are actually giving some hours extra to the corporate work that we do, right? For example, every morning, the users are 6 to 8. Everyone is actually working for office. It could be that you are checking your emails. It could be you are replying to emails. You are acknowledging a calendar invite. So 6 to 8 a.m. is the mean time that is you are more productive. So similarly, every few hours you are giving more to your organization when you are more productive there. Right. Similarly, so reports also suggest that users are more often happier. Happier here means that that you have your own choice of device that you can use. It's sometimes we see that okay, the device that company is giving to me, it's a bit not that modern. It's not the latest version. So when we have our own device, for example, you have a trendy iPhone 14, you are more happy to work on this because you have all the latest features, you have all the latest gestures to work on it. So you are more happy that yes, I have a trendier device which I work on my own way to use my corporate data, and you are much more comfortable on accessing or using those devices rather than a company giving you a much controlled hardware which is controlled by the organization more. You get a better security. It's not that devices are not secure. If all the policies or security control measures are in place, then believe me that your BYOD devices are also as much as secure as your corporate devices. If the right set of policies, if right set of controls and measures are in place, definitely there is minimal chance of data leakage. There is no surety that data leakage won't be there, but yes, if right policies are configured in the right way, then the data leakage would be as low as possible, depending upon how and what you allow to the users. Right? Then you have a redundancy also. For example, if your corporate laptop is not working, you have your personal laptop or you have your personal phone to be productive on the go. Or as redundant plan that you are productive, you are not being stopped to work. Conventionally, if your work device was not working or you are not able to go to office, your productivity was not there. Nowadays, it's not like that. You are productive wherever you want to be. So it's totally up to the user or the organization how they allow users to be more productive, right? You can be working when we travel nowadays in trains or in metros. We see that people are working. Even we ourselves are working. Laptops are on. We are on the calls and Teams. So most of the time, the morning calls are on the go itself on the Teams. We see everyone on the in the train or metros that they are on the Teams call. So this is how we allow users to be more productive, right? So think of the positive side, and the advantages are definitely there. Then why not BYOD? Definitely, if the positive side is there, then the negative side is also there for everything. So as we say that there is no surety that the data leakage won't be there. Data leakage and data loss, our chances for them are quite low as well as high. For example, I would say that there was a discussion. I was in a customer that we restrict cut copy paste, right? Or we restrict a screenshot. At the same time, you can just put a camera over your phone or a laptop and you can still take screenshots. So it's up to the human behavior, but we can also relate it to the data leakage. At the same time, if a device is compromised, yes, chances of data leakages are there, even though if the device is secured with the antivirus product, but yes, chances would be there for data leakage. Then, since these are mobile devices, we cannot compare them as much as secure to a physical or to an actual like a laptop or a server or a machine. They are always more vulnerable to, and they are the easiest attack vectors. Also, they are easiest accessible to attacks. Also, for example, the man in the middle attack, the HTTP, and then those things are quite easy to be done on these mobile devices. We have seen that even if though you are using a good anti-spyware, anti-malware product, for example, MDE, Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, you can still sideload applications even though you have blocking it, but on a personal storage, you are allowed to do it. And once the sideload application is there, you can still easily go to corporate data to do whatever you want. But again, the things to control are the security measures. Then the major concern that we discuss with the stakeholders when we open this BYOD is that what happens if your device is lost or you're stolen, right? we IT guys always say that, all right, we would be immediately connecting with IT service desk and asking that, okay, my device is stolen or lost, please lock it down. But there are chances that by the time you report it, the data might be compromised from the device. So that's the most and the major security risk that the CTOs or the high level guys in the organization, the C level, they think that yes, if a device is lost or compromised, then the data chances of data leakage are the highest at that point of time. So that is something which is a worrying block for everyone. Then employee privacy is also sometimes a concern because employees sometimes thinks upon that your organization might be spoofing upon them or they might be looking upon to the device. So it's a privacy as well as user education that no, even though you can, for example, in Outlook, you can add two profiles at the same time, one your personal, one is your corporate. But from technology side, we won't be possible to look into your personal container. But from user perspective, it's sometimes hard to explain them no, we won't be looking into it. But some so that's why privacy is there. When we enroll the devices, we see that what Intune can see and what Intune cannot see into their devices. That's the reason that MDM vendors, they specifically mention that what we can see and what we cannot see, that your privacy is the utmost concern. But when we speak about countries which are strict privacy, for example Germany, then yes, these are legal concerns and complications in which sometimes organizations want to avoid, and that's why they have strict controls over there. Support cost sometimes also increase because you right now you are only managing your corporate devices, but now you have additional cost of managing your personal devices also. Users might call in that I need to wipe my device, so I need to request some additional features on my device, some additional concern, so that you might have land up in additional calls to the service desk or additional cost to your tools also. And since we say that since the devices are lost or stolen, or if user says that the device is not with me, then you won't be able to retrieve data. That's also one of the major concern that data which is stored on a user's device is not easy to recover as we compare to a fully managed or a supervised devices that we have. So these are the top vectors I would say that are concerned for organization, that why do not they should not open to BYOD, right? So then alternatives to BYOD, right? So even we say that you have all the options, you have all the security measures, you have everything in control, but still, what if I do not? Sorry, what if I still do not want to open my users to have BYOD, right? So there are a few options to it, or what we say that alternatives to it, and there are, I believe, four or five options that we would be discussing upon to see. For example, if you say that I don't want to open BYOD at all, I want to open in a restrictive way, what options should I have? So it's not only that you simply open your mobile devices as a BYOD, you have other options also. The first one that we would be discussing is the web browser, the easiest way actually, that you do not allow your users to enroll your mobile devices. No, complete no. But still, if you say that, all right, we allow you to access corporate resources through web browser. And for example, there's certain URL that you access, and then you enter your username, password, and there's a strong authentication MFA or 2FAs are there. Then you get into the system, and then you access your corporate data to view only or read only, right? So it's the simplest means of BYOD, in which you simply access your corporate data through your web browser. There's only one advantage to it, that is a simple and versatile access, right? No good user experiences, and there are many negative points to it. First is that you can easily access your corporate data, store corporate data. Yes, we would say that since we are providing a controlled way, how would be able to access it? I would not go into those things, but there are ways that you can actually access corporate data even when you are trying to access through browser method, right? It is never 100% assurance from a user that the security on which the end user is trying to access your corporate data is uh, fully secure. It could be that the device might not be having 100% security patch level. It could be that he might have used some keyloggers, or it could be anything, because it's a personal device. We cannot know what the end user is going through or what device he or she is using to access the corporate data, right? So that says that even a malware infected devices can easily gain access to your corporate data. For example, think of that you have a rooted phone or a jailbroken phone, and you allow that you would be able to access through browser, and you access it, right? So the phone is actually compromised, right? There are means of way to restrict it, but think of this perspective that the organization is not having a strong control, and we only say that web browser. Then there are ways. So that's why it's not the easiest or not the recommended way. Although it's the easiest way, but it's not a recommended way to allow it through web browser only, because you cannot be 100% ensured that what user is doing would be having a correct device, right? So that's the first point, but not recommended at all. Then the most widely used right now or nowadays is the VDI, that is the virtual infrastructure desktops, or we call it remote applications. It allows users to connect to a remote view of desktop. We all have seen it, and we almost everyone in organizations have this one, that you publish only a certain applications on the remote viewer or the VDIs, and then users are allowed only to access those things. Right? It's provide a standard suite of applications that is a pre or defined by the organization, that yes, you will be allowed only to have access to these and these and these applications. It's again a old conventional way, which users do not like, and sometimes it has some connection issues also. Uh, more do not It's not liked by users that much. So although it has a bit increased pros, but if you look at cons, there's a basically again the same thing, security things. So if you look at the positive sides of it, then we see that's because minimal, you only allow certain applications, two, three, five, whatever it is. So there's a minimum amount of corporate data that is being actually accessed through those RDP sessions, right? It provides a simple device and compliance check. We can have checks that once you, whenever you are starting the remote sessions, a basic device compliance checks are done in the backend, and once your device is compliant, then only you are launching that sessions, right? You can enforce strong authentication methods, like you can have 2FA, MFA, that before accessing it, launching it, you should be compliant with those multi-factor authentications. The data that is collected on the user's device can help enforce access decision, because you can check what the data is being collected on the device level, and chances of data compromise are quite less. At the same time, you need, the negative points are that you need a strong stable connection, that I was just saying, that we have people generally say that VDS connections issues and stabilities are there, so you need a strong data connections plus a lot of backend network infrastructure also to support a stable and streamlined VDI connections, right? And you need a strong policies and configurations of the security side, as network side, Windows side, everything, to allow users to have these RDP sessions. So we will not call it a BYOD solution, but it's an alternative, that if you are not allowing your users to be using a mobile devices or laptops personal on them, you have this approach that if you do not allow them, then you can allow users to have a VDIs or remote desktops to access corporate data from their personal devices, right? Then the third one is mobile device management, MDM, which we all know that we have three things nowadays, two things only, that is MAM and MDM. So MDM is like when you end to end manage the complete device. So all modern device platforms, including iOS, Windows, Mac OS, nowadays Chrome and Ubuntu also, and Windows 10 and 11, you have a support for a complete end to end device management for from different MDM vendors, right? This is the best way if you want to have an end-to-end control over the device, not a good way for having a BYOD. Right? Because when BYOD, you do not want to manage the complete device, you only want to manage the user container. So since we all are from MDM, we know that their security controls are the highest level. They are the best industry standards we have. We can enforce authentication as well as access controls here, whatever we want, and we can enforce conditional access, compliance access, that only the compliant devices should be able to allow to access on all those things. And the best thing that we have is that we can push maps as a mandatory intent install, that yes, if it's a work application, it can be installed on a device. But as we said, that it's not for BYOD. It's when we talk about that you should have a fully managed device, so, or a company devices. So a best alternative, I would say, to BYOD, if we are not allowing users, right? Then the best thing is mobile application management, that we call as MAM, in which you have those restrictions on your user's personal device. So it's the industry standard way of or the recommended way of allowing users to allowing them for being your own device. So it's based on the containerization. Basically, for example, if you have your Android devices, Samsung devices, I would say, then Samsung devices, we see that when we enroll into Intune company portal, we see a blue briefcase or suitcase icon on the corporate IP applications, and then two separate containers are created. One is a work container, second is a personal container. So it works on the container personalization, basically, in which your corporate data is separated from your personal data. Whatever you do in your personal container remains there, and whatever you do in your corporate container remains there, right? So your corporate container is sort of containerized, in which you restrict your data flow in and out, as well as the applications that you want to manage them. Personal things, you can restrict what and how they flow in and out of the corporate as well as personal containers, both ways. So see, it's the best way of implementing security constraint. You can have a remote selective wipe of corporate data. For example, you say that my device is lost or stolen, or that device is user is no more working with the organization. We simply do a selective wipe, which means that only the corporate data will be wiped from the device. Users' personal device and personal data will still be intact and secure on the device. So the advantage here is that we do not touch users' personal uh, data at all, right? So we say that this is the best way, because only the corporate data which we manage or which you manage can be enforced upon. You get a much more granular control on the device level also. For example, if the device is compromised, you force a conditional access, that if a device is not having a latest security patch level, or if the conditional access is not met, user won't be able to access your, for example, Outlook or Teams. So you have a granular control on the device level also here. Then you say you force that I was enforcing conditional access, where if a user is not enrolled into MFA, or the identities are not met, then you won't be able to allow corporate data. So there are endless possibilities where you can control the MAM and the data movement here and there, right? There was a use case, for example, I was discussing, where a company wanted that you should be only allowed to copy paste the 8 digits or 7 digits to your telephony system. So that's the way of the measures, strict measures, that you can go down to the device level, that yes, you are only allowed to cut copy paste 10 digits or 10 characters from your from your corporate data to your personal phone book system, right? Similarly, like many organizations have the concept of blocking cut copy paste, in which you say that if you are copy pasting your data from your work container to your personal container, then you won't be allowed it. At the same time, if you have OneDrive, Teams, SharePoint installed on your work container, then you are allowed to copy paste the data there. So the data remains within your work container, which keeps the integrity of the data intact there. That if the personal container is compromised, your data remains safe there. Then the beauty on it here is that recently we have seen that Microsoft has released the Microsoft Defender for endpoint capabilities, which is it was released 2 days back, in which it has a web filtering and sensing for your network attacks also, right? So a very good use case here. For example, if you are sitting at the airport, just having waiting for your flight, and for example, you are just waiting for airport and having that, why not have a Starbucks coffee, right? There would be someone who might be have spoofing that Wi-Fi, or having that same Wi-Fi address, that Starbucks, for example. And you could be, if you have been frequently connected, you might easily get connected to there. These products, for example, Defender for endpoint or any other MTD product, have an inbuilt system that they block these man in the middle attack or HTTPS stripping, right? So if you are accessing corporate data, then you will be protected there itself on the device level, that no, the device is being compromised, you won't be able to access corporate data, right? So I would say that this is the best solution. If you want to go for BYOD, if you want to allow your users to have a that users to their mobile devices on the go, then implement MAM with all those policies, and then you would be seeing that your data remains safe there, right? Then we would like then what security measure, security controls you can have, because we talked about like very high level that yes, you should have these and controls, but what security controls you should actually have to have a good user experience as well as a good security in place. So the as I said, that the list is never ending, and it totally depends upon you as a security guy or as an organization, that what you or how secure you want your data to be, or how secure your data flow should be. The first and foremost, I would say that you should enforce that all users accessing the corporate data through mobile devices should be MFA enabled, right? Enforce that you should have conditional access also, right? And then these are the industry standards. I'll quickly go through them. Then you should also force, for example, encryption of data at rest as well as in transit, so that the data that is flowing in and out is encryption there, and you will not be able to decrypt them. uh, then the important thing is that if you allowing a BYOD, do not expose your entire applications on user's device. Only expose those applications which a user should be having access to as a to be productive as soon as possible, right? Do not make them your all 50, 60 odd applications to be available or visible on the user's personal devices. Enforce that sign-in risk assessment is there, that user sign-in risk assessment is assessed, and the access level is accessed every few minutes or every few days, so that when the token expire, you know that user should be authenticating them again. Block sideloading applications, because this is the quite common way users can easily sideload applications into their personal container, and then data, the malware can easily flow into your corporate container. So always block sideloading applications. And then I would say that you should always also enforce the legal terms and conditions, because until unless legal terms and conditions are not there, users or employees won't be strictly thinking about that what they're accessing from your company, right? So that's why I enforced on that legal terms and conditions should be there to enable the BYOD. So this is a very high level component of security layer, that what comes into access layer, then your control layer, and then data layer. That's the last, that how your data is being accessed here, right? So when I wrote the blog, then people connected me that what are the best ways. So actually, there are no blueprints. There is no single rule for configuring your BYOD. It totally depends upon you. I can like these are a few snippets like which how your conditional access should look like. Totally depends again at how you are configuring. For example, session controls are there. You are defining which cloud applications or cloud applications apps are protected. You're defining the drive device state, that it is a hybrid Azure AD join only allowed, or what are the MFA's options you have, and how which grant controls you are giving it there. Then when we talk about the data protection layer, the last layer, then we have the application protection policy. That is your how your application, that is the MAM policy should look like. This is just an example that what I have configured in my one of my test tenants, that the best thing is always restrict cut copy paste between the corporate containers, and totally depends upon how much if you require pin access to your corporate applications or your work profile and so on. So test them out without pushing them before pushing them to your end users. Just an example of app protection policies. And before pushing your app protection policies to your line of business applications, we need to make sure that they are signed with your corporate credential certificates also, that they are capable of MAM enabled applications. Right, then even though these enforcements are there, you should have further enforcement, that is device level now. So we talked about data level, we talked about access level, then it's with device level, that you restrict the maximum number of devices that the user should be allowed to enroll in organization. Then you should have platform level restrictions, that for example you do not want to allow your Windows laptops as a BYOD. You only want to allow your mobile devices. So you only allow your Android and you only allow your iOS devices. So it totally depends upon which device platforms you want to enable to for your BYOD. Then you want to restrict your versions as well as platform. For example, you want to restrict certain vendor, for example, Xiaomi, or if any other vendor you want to restrict. We have the capability of restricting those hardware vendors also for your bring your own device. So totally depends upon whatever you want to restrict here, right? Or you can totally restrict your personally owned devices if you do not want to go for BYOD at all. So as I said that some facts that are interesting, because if we look into the current state of BYOD, as we're saying that since it's into market since 2010, that is more than 12 years now. So the BYOD market is expected to have a combined annual growth rate, that is CAGR, of 15%, increasing every year. 42% of companies have used endpoint malware protection on their BYOD just to keep your data secure there, and these could be any MTD product. BYOD users gain the most extra minutes. They saved on average of 81 minutes per week, which means you are more productive now. For at the same time, 40% of security breaches are due to lost or stolen. That's why I was saying that this is the most important thing that organizations do not want to email, because that's the highest reason for security breaches. And you are having 2 hours daily extra time. It could be before the bed, or right after the bed, that you are more productive at that time. And 30% of BYOD workers globally access their emails or officials when you are just wake up, that is between 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. And you realize that you are actually doing it every morning also. And a BYOD employee can send generally 20 more emails daily, because you are productive on the phone, on the go, right? So these are industry standard, industry researchers that have proven these facts. So some references. So I have written 2 blogs on BYOD, that is how to configure the right way, and what all measures you should having for your BYOD, some statistics and wikis. Yeah. So if there are any question answers, then we can take up.
And great job, Somesh. Good job.
Thank
I have some questions for you if there's no one out there.
Yeah.
I think there was one on this call, right, James?
There was one question which was about where the BYOD usage percentage source is from, but obviously you just had a link to that in the final slide, so I've just pasted that in Discord.
Okay.
And I do like, Somesh, that you are really like going from the top to the bottom where you want to be at. So you want to, as obvious as you said, you want to be at MAM level, right? You want to control the user session, but you also went through a corporate laptop. If the corporate laptop doesn't work, you have these possibilities.
Right.
The web browser, virtual desktop, or MDM, right?
Yeah. So
And
you
then-
have basically 4 options of restricting, like whichever option you want to as alternative, basically.
Yeah. And I also see you like Matrix.
Yes. Yeah. There's no blueprint here. No.
That's nice. That's nice.
Yeah.
Have you seen the latest movie, actually, by the way? Just
No, the third part is still pending for me.
Okay.
The first
Okay.
is the more part that I like the most. Yeah.
Okay. Next question is that you talked about the terms and conditions, right? Are
Yeah.
we able to make some custom terms and conditions?
Yes, we can define our own terms and conditions, and totally depends upon what text we want to have it, along with the branding of company. The branding comes from Azure AD part actually, and the advantage here is that we can publish the terms and conditions to group wise. For example, we have 2 groups for BYOD, one for Android, one for iOS. We can target them differently to different groups also.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what about MAM on Windows? Because that's been a big topic, right?
No.
Mobile application management on Windows, right? Or did you say no, James?
Yep, fills me with dread.
Yeah. Okay.
I would say that again, like that's why the reason that generally companies do not open up the Windows and Mac OS for BYOD, because that's no for MAM on Windows. Easiest always to control for, because see, for MAM you need to have that applications to have that I would say wrapping and all those things too, so that it goes through your security measures. And signing wrapping is quite easy for iOS and Android, but for like Win32 Intune it's not that easy. Yeah. But for Windows you have different options already in place for security things.
Okay. And my last question, how do we measure if a device is compromised? So if we allow in a device, how do we then check if the device is compromised?
First is that you see we need to have certain triggers, certain configurations there. So first is compliance will always be there, but it only gives you a very high level of compliance. I would say then the best option is that you should have an integrated MTD product, for example, Defender or any third party, which will give you alerting. For example, if you are having MDE, then you will be getting all the alerts in Sentinel. You can have real-time ticketing system also. That for example you have just installed a side-loaded application, we will be getting immediately an alert that this user has installed a third-party side-loaded application, or a certificate is expired, whatever it could be. So only that thing will help us with real-time alerts and integration with compromised devices.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have no more questions. You actually have a good note. Actually, you showed us in the end that you said that we are going to increase the working hours. I know the executives out there will love that.
When I was reading the statistics for myself, then I saw that, oh, right, it's true that morning whenever we wake up, like we are actually giving few extra hours in where we're sitting, and then we are actually reading those, acknowledging those emails, and before the bed also, we are actually more productive nowadays.
Yeah, and there's also another part of that. So every time you can work on your own devices, you also like feel like you're on the job all the time, right? So it's
Right.
also a little bit of a brain stuff in it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you
Thank
so much.
Thank you. And thank you, especially James, for yeah, being the backstage and control technical things. And thank you, Jonas.
You're welcome. Okay. So next up is it me? I think it is me. Okay, I'm gonna go straight to my own PowerPoint slides. We just had some incredible speakers on. I'm gonna end the show, or how we want to call it. And I just want to say that thank you to all the speakers. And if you have any questions to the speakers that just been on, or me, you are welcome to go to our Discord and then ask us any questions. We have like ask about Intune, ask about Defender, and the last one is also ask about Learn, I think. Yeah, it is. So we are sitting in the Discord all the time. When we have time, we are in there on our own time. So we are open for questions and some good discussions. And if you want to be a speaker someday, you can come to our platform and be a speaker, and we will take care of everything in the back. So you can present like the speakers that's been on now. As you heard, that many of them are new. I'm also a bit new to this, haven't done speak for a while now. So this is also going to be interesting for me. So thank you again to all speakers. Now I'm going to go ahead with my slides, and then we are almost done. So we already went ahead for 2 hours and 50 minutes. Okay, that's crazy. Cool. So my topic today is going to be repetition bores humans quickly. I hate doing stuff twice. I'm a cloud solution architect. I just got awarded by Microsoft as MVP. My Twitter is below, and my LinkedIn. And then I can control my own slides. Good. So table of content. We are going to go, I'm going to use a little bit of the human behavior and also hardcore technologies, logic technologies, together with conditional access. But first off, I'm going to talk about the human behavior and the user perspective. And then we're going to wrap it up with some trust, cloud intelligence. So next slide, human behavior. So MFA fatigue, I hate that word, but it's an English word that I need to understand. It's in Danish, it's gonna be MFA træthed. But it's an underrated topic in human behavior because we are slowly introducing security flaws. Because we introduced MFA in the start when we had MFA with Azure AD to secure our identities, we pretty much wanted our users to be prompt with MFA. But the more we prompt with MFA, we are also like introducing a security flaw without even knowing. Because humans get bored, we don't want to do things twice. We just click and click and click and click. And the more clicks we can do in a day would just make us tired. So next up. So user perspective. Our users, we need to respect them, and we need to also understand how they want to do their daily works. So the first thing they're going to ask is what's in it for them. So every time they click on this yes or no, or they go in to match a number or anything like that, they are already asking themselves, if they do it too many times, what's in it for them, because they don't necessarily understand that clicking so many times is giving them a more secure, in a way, they think they are secure because they click, but they get bored. And we, as IT professionals, we come in the front instead of being in the back. So we don't want to have too much attention when it comes to security and being an IT guy. We want to have our users to be in a flow so they can be productive. So what we need to do, that was not the slide, this one. What we need to do is start now, not tomorrow. We need to look at implementing number matching, just so we are really not clicking on yes or no anymore, but we are actually making the users be more active when they click yes or no to the MFA prompt. So they need to match the number that are shown on the screen together with the authenticator application. So that will mean that we need to rethink. We need to rethink, and we need to trust Azure Identity Protection. We need to trust cloud intelligence. We need to understand that every time we get a primary refresh token and MFA claim, we need to trust that MFA claim and the primary refresh token. So that will mean that no more like prompting our users all the time, because Microsoft already handles a lot of the backend with the cloud intelligence. So when you all have that going for you, you have to implement, you have to rethink, you have to trust, then you can go ahead and start with the passwordless. So the passwordless is where it gets funny, it gets interesting, it gets secure, it gets, I will say, happy users, because no more passwords. So that is back to when you understand primary refresh tokens, you trust that, you're pretty much ready to go for your next journey, which is passwordless. And I know many companies want to be a passwordless when they first understand what passwordless is. Some people out there think that they are getting less secure with passwordless, but that is a big, big misunderstanding. Yeah. So my previous slide here is that this is many screenshots, but we need to trust the cloud intelligence and be proactive. So the first picture on the top left, you can see there is this number matching I'm speaking about. So they see a number match. They see a number on their screen. They get an 83, and they need to input this number. So that means there's no more yes or no. They need to clicking the number they see. So that will remove this MFA phishing attacks. That also happens out there. So you have probably heard about it, that a lot of users get unnecessary prompts from bad attackers out there. So they just click yes, 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 because now they're used to clicking yes all the time, because we have introduced the yes, 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 and because they get prompt too many times. So we need to rethink our conditional access policies. So in the top right, you can see the persistent browser sessions that I have seen so many times. It's set to never persistent. And in my head, I don't understand why we don't persist. This is like how you should not have it set up, by the way, on the right. You should trust, again, the primary refresh token. It's all right that it lives on the device because it gives users single sign-on. There's no reason for them not to have a persistent cookie on the device, especially not if it's a corporate-owned device. And the slide in the middle is about the authenticator settings, about the number matching. So you can go into the portal. I put in the little path up there where you can find it. And you can actually go in now and set in the number matching push notifications, which is newly introduced by Microsoft, which is the screenshot you see on the left. This will mean that on default, it's set to be managed by Microsoft, which means they will go in and handle when it should be populated to your users. But instead of waiting, again, go back to be proactive and start implementing this. On the February 27, 2023, Microsoft had already said that they will go in and go out and make it default. So that will mean that users will now have the default number matching settings set up for all of them, if you are where you should be with the Microsoft Authenticator app with push notifications. The next thing in conditional access that I've seen a lot of times is that we have this sign-in frequency, also called SIF. We have set it up to people need to authenticate each day for 8 hours of periods, which is, in my head also, we don't need that anymore. Again, go back to the trust the primary refresh token. If Microsoft sees anything that is bad behavior in the PRT, they will go in and request a new refresh token, so they can then go in and get a new primary refresh token. So that will be get a new claim. And with the claim, you can do, as you know, with conditional access, require a low user risk, a low sign-in risk, etc., etc. So go in and trust the cloud intelligence and start doing it now. Don't be too hard on your conditional access policies. There's just room for it. I can see there's a point if you have executives out there that need to be a lot more secure. I understand that, but normally default, you don't need it in your environment because Microsoft is already handling this primary refresh token. And if you have, not even if you don't even need Azure P2, the license, you can also get a lot of cloud intelligence just to have the Azure P1. But yeah, my slides are so quickly. So that was actually my slides. I think that was like 5 minutes, I think. But my blog is the blog.skymedsimple.io. And then you can also find me on the Discord, which I hope that many will come in and ask some questions and have some good discussions. And wrap it up here is that you should always think about the human behavior combining it with cloud intelligence. So that's it from me. So if there's any questions from the users, you are free to ask me questions. It's hard to be the one presenting and also be the one,
I've got a question for you.
Yeah, let's go, Andrew.
How are you going to handle people using Google Authenticator?
Oh, that's a great question. How are we going to handle Google Authenticator? I'm actually unsure if you can combine Google Authenticator with Azure Authenticator. I think there is, if you want to use the password, the push notifications, you need to use the Microsoft Authenticator. But to get people from Google Authenticator is because you're using, I think it's the code generator, right, on the device, on the Google Authenticator. You can screenshot the QR code. If you know the answer to it, it will be great. Because
no, I was just wondering how you're planning on blocking them from, because obviously they'll just switch to that and click.
Yeah. But you need, when you have the device registered, you need to have the registered device inside the Authenticator app. So that will mean that they will not be able to register the device to the Google Authenticator app from the get-go, pretty much.
Okay.
Because it's only possible to do that in the Microsoft Authenticator app.
Yeah.
Jonas, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Have you already heard when Microsoft enables number matching MFA as default?
Yeah.
I think it's somewhere next year, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, they're doing in February 27, 2023. That's
February
the
27,
latest date I heard, where they're gonna default enable it.
Yeah, okay, perfect.
Great questions. I like that Google Authenticator question, actually, Andrew. That was a good one. Because we need to understand there's a lot of possibilities out there, right? Where you can actually do authentication and MFA.
I've got another one for you.
Yeah.
If they're forcing it, is that for people currently enrolled or for everyone?
Forcing
the number matching.
The number matching. They're only gonna force it for people that has. So you need there are some prerequisitions. That's correct. That will only be for people if your environment already supports push notifications. Then you can also use the number matching.
So anyone exempt from MFA won't suddenly be forced to use number matching.
No, if you're still using the what is it called? The standard MFA you have.
Yeah, per user.
Sorry?
Per user MFA, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking for your break glass type accounts, you don't want it suddenly having a number match forced on it.
Yeah, but in my head, everyone should be using the number matching because it will then also make your environment more secure, and you won't have that phishing attacks possible anymore. Because
absolutely, everyone just clicks yes these days, don't they?
Exactly. Great questions. Okay, thank you. You have more?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
There are two possibilities of numbers to select from three numbers, and one where you have to type which one is the one who will be. Is this the selection or the text in a number?
Great question, actually. In my head, it's going to be this one.
This one, okay.
But I'm gonna follow up on that one because I know there is the 3 possibilities. You have the 3 options you can choose from, and then match it up with the one you have on the screen. And I think actually.
Okay, sorry,
Yeah.
question, but yeah, interested in because it's important this will be activated as default.
Yeah. And if I remember, now I'm thinking a little bit because this one is the old one. I think it is. I think they already, because you can see on the left, it's telling you to tap the number. So they will have the free number match, number possibilities you can press on. But again, back to the security part. If you have 3 numbers, you're back to just clicking, right? In a way.
This is right. You're on a button, then you have 3 buttons, but it's more. This solution is more secure.
Yeah, without having any numbers, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But I'm gonna follow up on that one because I will say that this one is the most secure one, that you have no number to click on, you know nothing, you just get a prompt and you're like, okay, what should I type in? And you probably then you assume that it's not you, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. I will say that will be it. And then I would just say thank you for the speakers to attend this event. It was fun. I had fun. I had a blast. I will say thank you to James in the back. He did an amazing job with all this streaming and showing pictures or webcams, and also controlling the little hiccup with Jannik. And Jannik, you handled that like a pro. Thank you for that. So thank you guys. Thank you all. Let's just end the event now, and hope to see you on the Discord, and hope to see you on the next event we're gonna have, because this was fun.
Thank you, Jonas, for setting this one up.
Thank you, Jonas.
Thank you all.
Thank you.